I keep a ridiculous amount of chamomile tea, lavender tea. I have the lavender stress soap, the lavender Epsom salt, the lavender essential oil. This bed spray. I'm just walking around with lavender, just spraying it around the house. Like maybe it'll work.
Hey y'all, what's going on? Welcome back to the Stacking Days podcast, where we highlight underrepresented journeys of sobriety within the BIPOC community. Today we have Aliah Sheffield joining us to share her journey in giving up alcohol and pursuing the road of professional musician and creative. In my opinion, her single Never Drinking Again off her debut EP, These Songs Are For Anyone Sick of Earth, is an anthem that truly captures the feeling one has when they're at the crossroads of their relationship with alcohol. And recently she's celebrated 2 years of her own sobriety, and I'm extremely excited.
2 years.
2 years, yeah, and I'm extremely excited that she's here.
This year it'll be 3.
This year to be 3. Well,
yes.
Look, there's nothing more to be proud about than the time and investment that you put into yourself with your own sobriety. So, Aliyah, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to Stacking Days.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So Aliyah and I had an opportunity to chat a little bit before we hit the record button here, and I almost had to scramble to pause our pre-chat so that I could hit record so we could capture all of the good stuff that we were already getting into. So as we kind of transition into the conversation, first and foremost, Aliyah, maybe just set the stage for folks who don't know who you are. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into where your journey with alcohol and your relationship with alcohol started, and kind of just progress from there.
Okay, my name is Aliah Sheffield. I am a songwriter, and I play piano, and I write songs about things that I go through in life, and I try to just be as open as I can in my music. And I ended up going viral for a song called Earth is Ghetto during the pandemic, which is really when I started my sobriety journey. So that's who I am.
When you said Earth is Ghetto, I literally had it in my I got it in my head. Yes, it's a beautiful song. No wonder why it went viral. But again, extremely excited to have you on the show. Let's start from the beginning. Where did your relationship with alcohol begin? What was kind of the why behind it? And then talk us a little bit through what those days looked like for you.
I would say the beginning for me was probably a lot later than it was for a lot of people. I didn't start drinking till I was 21, and I was performing in bars and working at different restaurants as a singer. And I had a lot of stage fright, and I used alcohol as a way to help me deal with social situations because I'm not a very social person. So that was my start. And when you're a musician, you get paid a lot in exposure and drink tickets.
I got you. I mean, so in that, was that the transition that you made from being, I guess, singing for your own pleasure into singing professionally and having to be on stage performing in front of individuals?
Yeah, that was around the time that I transitioned, and that was me making that my career. I was working as a piano bar entertainer in a lot of different restaurants, like Italian restaurants and piano bars. And some of the piano bars were literally behind the bar. So you're just literally surrounded by alcohol and the anxiety of the situation, and learning how to perform and learning how to perform in a setting where you really need to be around customers who are just completely wasted. It just makes you just give in, and you're just like, okay, well, and you gradually find yourself using alcohol as a way to soothe any uncomfortable social setting.
And so how long would you say that alcohol was your mechanism to cope with some of the anxiety that you felt around being on a public stage?
I'd say, honestly, for about 13 years.
Really?
Yeah, at 13 years, I was it just gradually just increased and increased.
would you say that at a certain point in time, it was clear that you had an issue that you had to confront with alcohol, or did
Oh,
it never really kind of like show itself in that light, and it was just kind of like a progressive thing that you figured at some point, I got to cut this thing out of my
It
life?
was more of a me noticing it thing. When I worked on ships, I was literally just always walking around with tea and whiskey in a cup, and they wouldn't even
Right.
they wouldn't even notice. Nobody would notice because it just was the way I always was. And I think I really noticed it was a problem when I moved to Mexico and during the pandemic. Um, uh, Most people probably wouldn't have decided to quit during the pandemic. But if I would have kept going during the pandemic at the rate that I was going, you move to Mexico, you're around tequila.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of cheap, they have it in the grocery stores when you first walk in the door. And it just was such a problem. I was just drinking bottles. And that's when I realized it was a problem and I started trying to quit on my own. And the reason I had to start trying to on my own was because I was in Mexico and I wasn't around anybody. And then I moved
Mm.
to Atlanta and relapsed and then tried again. And then I had more people around me, but I didn't really start truly quitting until about 2021.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine in Mexico. I mean, not so you were there by yourself in Mexico.
Yeah, I was there by
So
myself.
got you. So I would assume even just living, somewhere on your own, there's probably a degree of like concern around your own safety if you're constantly walking around, a bottle of tequila in. You moved to Atlanta, you relapsed. What did your attempts at quitting look like? Was it simply saying like, you know what, I'm just going to abstain, I'm going to stop drinking, or did you kind of implement any tools into like your day to day, or was it just a matter of let me moderate, let me just try not to drink on certain days? Like, what did it look like
It
for you?
was a lot of let's see how long I can go without drinking anything and failing.
Mm,
There was a lot of just it was no me looking into the mental aspects of it. I wasn't looking into that. I was just writing. I was writing about it in songs, and just seeing how long I could go without drinking. And I didn't really start looking into the mental aspects about it until I finally made it to like 3 months.
mm. On
And
your
then
last attempt at quitting.
yeah, on my last attempt at quitting, I didn't look into the mental aspects of it until I finally got to 3 months without anything. And that was just because I finally started letting people around me know that I was going to quit. Uh, and yes, I had family members speak out and ask and concern and stuff like that, but like nobody really thought it was like something that I was heavily doing every day. Because I was very good at hiding things. Uh,
Mm,
but I didn't look into the mental thing until I finally made 3 months, and that's what helped was speaking to a therapist. Even though I can admit that I wasn't completely honest with the therapist, but
mm.
speaking to that therapist and speaking out loud and finally saying, "Hey, I'm trying to quit," and I'm on my sobriety journey, and then having once you say it out loud, sometimes that helps because you have other people that are holding you accountable.
Yeah. I mean, I think therapy was also a part of
Hmm.
my journey as well, and I think that, and I don't know if I was completely honest initially in my therapy sessions either. I feel
Hmm.
like, particularly like for folks of color who have a distrust for like the
It's
system, and
so
like
it's so hard.
you're
Like
like, I don't know if
y'all not gonna lock me away.
yeah. But to your point, like it does help when you are more vocal about something that you've basically
Hmm.
kept a secret to, anyone outside of yourself. So I'm glad that you shared that that's a part of your story. When you were transitioning into looking at what some of the what some of the mental implications were on some of the implications were on your mental health and removing alcohol for your life, what did you stumble on for yourself in your own story for Aliyah that really spoke to you to say, this is something that I want to continue down? Because I'm assuming you probably still have anxiety, or at least still had anxiety when you were performing, and
Hmm.
and your career has only increased in exposure from the time, right? So you're probably dealing with larger, audiences and
Mhm.
more eyeballs than you were even when you initially were trying to become sober. So I'm just curious, like, what did the mental health aspects look like for you as you were transitioning 3 months, and onward in your sobriety journey?
I will say it's made me, um, the mental health aspect for me is more like I used liquor or alcohol as a way to probably tone down like my social anxiety. I used it as a way to tone down things that I didn't like about myself, or the realizing about the things I didn't like about myself. It's not like it's going to make those things go away, but it would make my me being able to think about them go away. And one thing I'd say mentally that I've realized since I've gone to therapy and stopped drinking was I don't have to make those things go away. I don't need alcohol to make the social anxiety go away. Talk about the social anxiety. When you get on stage, say, hey, I'm anxious, so this is going to be awkward. Live in that awkwardness. When you're upset about something or you feel like you don't fit in around the people that you don't try to make yourself fit in around those people. Just
Mm.
those were the things that made me be able to not use it as a crutch anymore, because I didn't need the crutch because I was living in the things that made me uncomfortable.
Just facing them head on, basically.
Yeah, basically just going right into it, just being like, you know what? These are the things that I don't like about me. I'm drinking because I'm trying to dampen these things. You cannot like them. Just you don't have to like them, but that don't mean you have to dampen them down. You don't have to use anything to crush that.
Yeah. Did you find as not only a performing artist but also as a songwriter? I think that those are two completely different,
Hmm.
roles, right? Where did I've heard that, and it makes sense to me that those who are creative oftentimes rely on alcohol for that creative inspiration. Was that
Hmm.
part of what you experienced as well, or was that not something that you had to take into
Oh,
consideration?
it was definitely a part of it, because when I was alone and I was writing, since I had spent all day um trying to dampen down my emotions, I also felt like I needed that alcohol to make me feel real things, which is
Mm,
kind of is such a contradiction if you think about it. I feel like I can't write the same if I'm sober. I can't be as deep and as emotional if I'm sober, but that's not it wasn't true for me, because I was also using that same excuse as a way to suppress
yeah.
those emotions.
So I'm fast forwarding a little bit here, but how do you tap into those emotions today, and allow them to come through your music when you're interacting with them in a very different way than maybe you once did? And the reason why I asked that specifically is because if I understand it correctly, "Never Drinking Again" is a song that you wrote
Hmm.
and before you stopped drinking,
Yeah, I was literally
right?
literally drinking while writing the song and thinking about all of the things that I wanted better for my life when I was writing the song. Like, I want to live. I want to, even though I'm still having trouble going outside and doing things that require you to be social, but I was thinking, I want to be able to live and have experiences and not be drunk out of my mind during those experiences. I want to live. I don't want to do this again. I don't want to feel what I'm feeling right now again. I want to wash this away in the morning and not come back here.
So how do you tap into that creativity today? Now that crutch and that dampener is in your rearview mirror.
If I'm feeling something, I try not to distract myself from the feeling. And before, I would go on social media, grab a drink. I would watch a TV show or something like that. Instead of distracting myself from the feeling, I just try to let myself feel it. I sit at the piano and let myself feel it. And I'm usually recording songs on my voice notes, which my manager's like, did you record this the right way? And but I'm usually recording like demos on my voice notes, and a lot of the times I'm just literally playing chords and and instead of writing what I'm thinking, I'll just sing it out loud, unfiltered, and then I force myself not to edit and make it prettier or make it more digestible.
Right. So it comes through as like the raw emotion that you're feeling in the moment, essentially, is what, if I'm understanding it.
Exactly. Yeah, it comes to like whatever I'm feeling at exactly that moment, because it's what I'm feeling, and I'm just not cleaning it up. Like there are
Cool.
definitely some lyrics that I have in songs that I'm like, well, maybe I shouldn't have said that, and I just leave it, because if that's something I feel like I shouldn't have said, that's something someone's feeling like they shouldn't have thought, and they're ashamed of thinking it.
No, that totally makes sense. I mean, and I appreciate that you're able to tap into that honesty, both emotionally, musically, and then ultimately, I think that that's what allows folks to really like feel your music. I mean, I know that that's one of the things that I really appreciate about the music that you've released. So please, know that that's appreciated. I know that you know that, but I just wanted to make sure that I express that directly to you.
Thank you. It helps to be reminded when you're like listening back, when you record stuff and they're doing final mixes and you're listening, you're like, oh my God, why did I say that? It helps to be reminded when people say stuff like that.
No, it's beautiful. I really personally really appreciate it. I was going to ask you about you 2 years into your sobriety at this point, and I also hit my 2 year mark in last September, and it's still a struggle. We talked a little bit about
Mm-hmm.
this before we came on. What does your reality look like today with alcohol? Is it something that you think about? Is it something that you, in the back of your mind, you wonder whether or not it'd be something that you could turn to, or is it such a distant memory for you that you're not even remotely interested in turning back?
Anytime I am remotely inconvenienced, I think about alcohol. So it's like I'm not even at the point where I don't think about it anymore. But I am at the point where I react differently to that thought.
Mm. What does that reaction look like for you?
I try to, if there's something that makes me feel like I need to grab a drink, that means go sit down on the piano and write if you have time, if you have the time to do it. Or that means go find a book or something. I read a lot of fantasy novels, or find some way to not revolt to that. And I do, like, now I drink a lot of tea. Um, so I'm like always, if anything, I'll find my way to some type of tea or something, and I'll drink that. Like, I keep a ridiculous amount of chamomile tea, lavender tea. I have the lavender stress soap, the lavender Epsom salt, the lavender essential oil, this bed spray. I'm just walking around with lavender, just spraying it around the house. Like, maybe it'll work. So
That's
anytime I just use, I like it. So the thoughts don't go away. The urge to drink hasn't really gone away from me, but the way
She's
I
like,
react to
where's the
that.
lavender at?
Exactly. It's a ridiculous amount of lavender in my house. But it's just like and then I always look at it this way. Look, I got a hospital bill the other day for like $10,000. Old me would have drank about that. New me thought about drinking, and instead I went and wrote a song about the bill and posted it about it instead. So it's not necessarily that it goes away. It's just how you react to it changes.
Yeah, I mean that certainly lavender certainly sounds like a healthier avenue to pursue.
An
When
expensive avenue to pursue, but yeah.
well, you get the good stuff, then it'll
I keep
cost you a little.
I keep getting Dr. Teals, and it's like
That's good.
because it's supposed to be like the one good brand. I'm thinking about getting like lavender plants, but I can't even keep a succulent plant going in the house. So
Oh man. Well, Dr. Teal's they do a lavender Epsom salt.
yeah, I
Have you
have
tried?
that. I have
Okay.
that. I have that, the bubble bath, and I have a spray that they have that you can spray on your bed and around the house.
Yeah, I get the feeling that I can't get anything lavender past you. You probably got it all.
I just literally just Google. It was like that was my replacement, which is probably a healthier replacement, but it's still like I'm trying to calm down a little bit on it. But I'm like, okay, lavender and chamomile are supposed to be stress reliever.
It's all good. I mean, I subscribe to that as well. I got my fair share of lavender, the teals,
Hmm.
lavender, Epsom salt. Love that. And then you get the spray. You just put it on your pillow, and that helps calm some things down too.
Yes.
Uh, I was going to say, we talked a little bit about this before we started recording here, but for someone like yourself who clearly has a lot of eyeballs on her, right?
Hmm.
You got a lot of folks who are looking at what you're doing, and a lot of them are looking at you for for your music, for your art. And then, I think maybe you tell me if I'm wrong, there's almost a surprise when they start hearing you talk about your sobriety. I feel like there's probably a subset of individuals that are huge champions of yours when it comes to you talking about that. But then you have
Hmm.
other folks who have other opinions. How do you kind of reconcile, being in your truth and speaking your truth as it relates to your own journey of personal development, in terms of your, the base of folks who are watching you? We talked a little bit about this beforehand, but I didn't want to get a little bit into that and
Yeah.
how you feel about that. How do you manage and balance that?
I try to remember that the people that I'm trying to reach are the people who are trying, not the people who think they know the answers already. The
Mm,
people who I'm trying to talk to are people who are trying to figure out the answers, because I'm also a person trying to figure out the answers. I don't know the right way to anything. There is no right way to anything. Every way is different for somebody, and hearing different opinions or different journeys might help somebody. It doesn't have to be one clear picture, one clear way to go about being sober or to go about giving advice about being sober. I'm not saying that my advice is perfect advice, but I'm saying my advice is something that will get somebody at least thinking about it.
hmm Yeah, I mean, I think that's conversation with self is the first step, right? I mean, depending on what what school of thought you believe in, there
Hmm.
is a school of thought that believes that first and foremost you just have to identify this as something you want to address. And I think that that's a really healthy conversation to have. And if nothing else, having curiosity about how you are navigating life is a good thing.
Exactly, and um, you can't really write a manual for that, like how somebody is going to heal and how somebody is going to come to sobriety. There are manuals, but that even those manuals don't all work for the same person. So you just
Yeah.
have to hope that what you're putting out is something that just makes somebody want to change their life.
Yeah. Have you found community in that space for yourself? I know that I get the sense that you're a very independent person, right? You move into Mexico, you move to Atlanta, you're doing all these things on your own. In the last 2 years, have you, especially coming out of COVID, have you
Mhm.
found yourself coming into community that is supportive of you, where you can really lean on in this, as we talked about it earlier, this continued struggle of life?
I will say I haven't really reached out to like AAs or like sobriety groups because I just don't necessarily do well in group settings. But I have had people who follow me for my music and my honesty to also deal with um, learning how to be sober, reach out to me. And
Hmm.
I've had people who have been in this journey longer than me reach out to me. I have there's a group called Sober for Black Girls Club. I think that's the
Okay.
name of it. And they've reached out, and that has been great when I do speak to them. Even just seeing posts from them, that's just nice to know that they're still on their journey.
Yep.
And that was someone who followed me from the beginning, and it just makes me know that even if I don't reach out, just seeing that, like just what I mean by when you say you just seeing posts or something like that, lets you know that you aren't alone. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I've necessarily reached out and had a community and anything, but I do try to reach out to other people who walk the journey alone.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of similarities between you and I in that respect. Like it's not the first time me saying this. I didn't partake in a formal AA program or anything like that. Like I've
Mm-hmm.
cobbled together my community through this podcast and on social media, and I think that that's kind of like a new wave of where one can find some comfort in their own sobriety. Sober Black Girls Club, is definitely. I listen to their podcast too,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah. They're great.
I think that they're great. I want to be sensitive to your time here because I know you got some stuff going on. But as we kind of like get into closing out the show here, I wanted to know from your perspective, what was it that at a certain point in your journey did you say to yourself, I really need to address this? And the reason that I asked that is because one of the questions that I oftentimes ask guests in closing out the show is, how would someone else have known that you were struggling when you were without you explicitly telling them so?
I did happen to get like extremely drunk in front of my family once, and even though other people were as well, it was just concerning because they knew that I drank a lot. So for me to get that drink, they're like, well, how much did she drink? And I think that was one of the things that opened my eyes for me. And I've had like people that I'm friends with and work with um, reach out and be like, hey, you sure you're okay? Like my manager at one point was like, are you
Mm,
all right? And then that was a big eye opener for me. But that literally didn't happen until like the last 4 years. The people who are around me were also drinkers as well, so I'm not going to call each other out on
yeah,
things that
yeah,
we're all dealing with. But um, I think having even those moments of people noticing was enough of a wake up call for me, because it took a long time for even those people to notice that, because I am such an isolated person. That's probably one of the reasons.
yeah. Two questions that on the back of that. One, how long have you been with your manager?
Probably since about 2021.
Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
your manager's been with you from, before you were sober. Now
Mm-hmm.
that is your manager still drinking? Is that part of their thing, or?
He's not really a big drinker anyway to begin with.
Okay.
So, but he's definitely told me that he's been inspired to drink even less now. So, won't even really have a drink around me if we're like having a dinner or something like that. So, it's very respectful in that way.
Gotcha. The other question I had is, when you decided to give up, I think you told me that you went cold turkey.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what did that what did the lead up to that look like for you, where you're just like, okay, now's the time? I'm assuming if you're doing bottles of tequila, and sounds like you were, you know, using alcohol in a pretty regularly, in high quantities. How did you just turn that off? Was that was
I
that
got
was that challenging for you?
I got blackout drunk and didn't remember anything and still don't remember anything. And I just realized I never wanted to do that again. And that was it for me. It was just like, okay, I never want to do that again. I never want to be in a position. I'm glad I was around people who were able to, my manager, who was able to like be like, okay, we're getting our home now. And I didn't have to
Yeah.
worry about that. But that was a wake up call for me and was enough to push me for those first 3 months.
Mm. Because you were just basically scared shitless, or you
Yeah,
were
I was
like,
just
I don't want to deal with this stuff anymore. Like,
it's like it was just like I don't even know. I don't know if I have a mask on. I don't know what I was doing because I'm like very COVID conscious at this point. This was early. This is like 2020, 2020, 2021. So we're
mm,
still very, very COVID conscious, even though I'm still crazy about being COVID conscious. But it was
yeah,
just like having all of the anxiety about not being aware of where you are. That was like I needed to be in control, and
mm,
that helped me kind of push forward. One thing I did a lot was I drank a lot of ginger ale in that first month in wine glasses. Ginger ale and wine glasses.
okay,
I drank like non-alcoholic like cocktail stuff and made those sometimes. But I drank
Yeah.
a lot of ginger ale tea and just did not leave the apartment for the first month as well. So that
Just
also helped.
quarantined yourself and like put yourself
Yeah.
basically through your own detox.
Yeah, it was basically like I locked myself in the apartment, wrote so many songs, wrote almost half of my EP during that time.
Mm.
So
Came from a raw place, I'm sure.
yeah.
What does life look like for you now? I know we were chatting earlier, like I said, and I think we agreed on the fact that like it's still a journey, it's still a struggle. You're just kind of fighting with different tools. But what does life look like for you now? 2 years in.
Life for me now has been a lot of um, learning that some of the people that I considered close, I can't consider them close anymore because I'm not the same person, and uh, people don't want to let go of that person I was when I was drinking. So it's been a lot of isolating and just learning how to be with myself and learning how to be okay with being with myself, my full
Right.
self, and not needing a way to dampen that self. Um, and I'm still in that phase, so I'm not necessarily in the sunshine and rainbows phase yet. I'm still, like I always say, I'm still healing.
Yeah.
Not healed yet. It's not. One day I'll feel like I'm fine, and the next day I can't even hang out at a bar because of temptation. So it's been a lot of solitude and realizing I can't do a lot of the things that I did before, and that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, healing is a lifelong journey, and I know that it looks different for everyone. But I feel like once you get to a place where you've seen what the clarity can provide you with, and you
Mhm.
have an opportunity to really just develop yourself, you start interacting with things that you inevitably couldn't avoid forever, right? Like
Yeah.
so shout out to you for for taking the road that requires the courage that you are, and also just continuing to just make beautiful music
Thank you.
and be the person that you are, and showing the world who you are. I think that's I'm so excited to see what you have in store for the future.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you got it. I do want folks to know where to find you though, and I want folks to know where they can get their ears on your music.
You can find me on www.aliyahsheffield.com, and that's my website. It'll have links to all of my social media, and my social media at is Aliah Sheffield on all platforms.
I appreciate you. Well, and if anything, I'll include the link to the single and to your EP in the show notes, so folks cannot mistake where to find a lot of your beautiful music. And once again, really do appreciate you spending some time with us and just being vulnerable and honest, with the listeners about your story. Definitely want to give you your flowers for that.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Well, we'll be in contact for sure. And with that, we'll close out this episode. Everyone, stay tuned for our next episode. And until then, be well, one day at a time. I appreciate you guys listening to the Stacking Days podcast. I hope this episode added value to your recovery and wellness journey. Before we go our separate ways, let's connect on social. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram at Stacking Days, or via the website www.stackingdays.com. By supporting the show, you can play a direct role in amplifying people of color in their pursuit of recovery. The easiest way to do that is to subscribe or hit the follow button. This way, you'll never miss an episode, all while playing an active part in creating the ecosystem where diverse voices in healing matter. This show is for the purpose of education and connection and is not a replacement for therapy or recovery care. For more information on the resources and support available, take a look at SAMHSA and some other resources shared in the description. Until we meet again, be well, one day at a time.